Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Ripple Intent Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Kyle McCroskey, and with me as always is John Grant. John, say hello.
Hey listeners, great to have you here.
So what we try to do at Ripple Intent is try to make you a better person, better teammate, better human. We do that through a variety of ways, and one of those ways we do is we find some really cool people to talk to on our podcast and chat through. And today I'm really excited to have with us somebody that crossed paths with me many, many years ago, and watching where he has gone and what he has done with what he's working on. And I can't wait for him to share this, is with us today, and that's Brian Mohr. Brian, go ahead and say hello, introduce yourself.
Hey, Kyle, John, it's great to be with you guys. Pleasure to be here. And, Kyle, I have to thank you in particular and the Ripple Intent community, because I don't think I'd be doing what I'm doing right now had it not been for an experience that I had when we first met one another. You graciously invited me to present at one of your events in Phoenix back in 2018, and it was a really powerful experience, and in many ways served as a catalyst that set me on my path. But to answer your question real quick, and we can certainly get into that story if it's relevant, I'll start with the most important things first. I am just a really, really lucky husband to my wife Jackie, coming up on 25 years in February. Talk about somebody much smarter than me said the ultimate cheat code in life is choosing the right partner, and good Lord, did I really get lucky. We have two amazing teenage daughters. One of them just left for college, our oldest, and so that's been a hell of an adjustment. Our other daughter's a junior in high school, and they're both just crushing it. And then on top of that, I'm really passionate about business and elevating the practice of business to the highest levels possible. And as we may stumble upon today, just music has been such a formidable force in my life, and something that I feel really, really fortunate to be able to integrate into the work that I do every single day, and leverage the undeniable power that music has, and that's what I've been up to with Anthem over the last three and a half years. So it's been super cool.
Yeah, I remember when you came out with I don't say came out, but at one point early on in the Anthem journey, you invited me to one of the events, and I joined virtually. I think it was during COVID, and we were in a virtual event, and I was really curious because I had to do some pre-work with it.
Yep.
And they were asking me all these questions about, what's your, I had to pick 5 songs, and I had to explain why those songs came to mind, and there was a lot of I was curious, going, where are you going with this, and what are you asking? And then we get on this call, and I end up in this virtual room with 5 other people who I have no idea who they are or what they do, and they didn't know me. I think maybe a couple of them may have known each other before we got there, but for the most part, we were all strangers. And for whatever reason, after our time together in that virtual room, it was like we knew each other. And it was all because we were talking about these songs. So you got to give us some context. What is Anthem? What's going on? And how the heck did you figure out how to do what I just described? Because that's pretty awesome.
Well, it was by sheer accident, truly was. I mean, I think if all of us take a step back and think about music and the impact that it has had on our lives, I haven't met anybody that hates music. So I think it's safe to say that most of us have a very positive relationship with music. And there's certainly some folks that lean into it a lot more than others. But by and large, I think everybody on the planet appreciates music for the beautiful art form that it is, music's ability to express how we feel, to lift us up when we're down, to inspire us when we need to get up for a big event. What I find really fascinating about music, and it's been proven time and time again, is there are songs in our lives that are very symbolic or connected to really important experiences, whether it's from childhood or high school or college or, yesterday. It's eras of our life. And what we wanted to do once the pandemic had come crashing down on all of us, and for the first time, so many corporate teams found themselves operating remotely for the very first time. And one of the downside consequences of that was this disconnection and this isolation, this sense of loneliness that began to creep into everybody's life at a really accelerated. Corporate teams make sure that in-office relationship, trust building time that would happen quite accidentally and serendipitously didn't evaporate because we weren't able to be in the same physical location together. And so to make a long story short, we experimented, and you were one of our guinea pigs at that first experiment, where we asked about 40 or so folks to show up to a Zoom meeting. And the pre-work was, hey, we want you to think about 5 different songs and the 5 memories that correlate to those songs. Come to the meeting with that, and then we're going to break you up into small breakout groups and see, could we use the power of music and the memories and stories in our lives that they represent as a way to bring total strangers together and to get beyond the, well, what do you do? Who do you work for? Where do you live? You know, some of the more surface level stuff. Not that that's unimportant, but certainly it's not nearly as interesting as getting to know somebody based upon the songs and memories that have been important in their life. And so we did that first experiment, and pretty much to a person, everybody said what you just said, which was, wow, you put me into a breakout room with 4 or 5 other people, and I came out of it knowing them better than I know some people that I've known for years. And so right away, we're like, all right, I think we might be onto something here. And we've built a business around that idea of wanting to bring people closer together, especially in the workplace where we are already spending so much time with our teammates, and yet how many of us really know who our teammates truly are, not just what they do, but who they truly are. And that's what we want to help do. We want to bring and infuse that sense of a deeper knowingness of who our teammates are in the workplace, because we believe that that will yield a lot better outcomes for what the team's working on.
You know,
So
Brian,
yeah.
sorry, Kyle, I'm going to jump in there. Can you,
Yeah.
I mean, I love this whole idea, and I love the concept and what you guys are doing with Anthem. So, you know, I come across people every once in a while, probably more than every once in a while, who are like, you know what, I'm going to go to work and I'm going to get my work done, take care of the tasks, what's in front of me, and I'm going to go home, and that's all I really care about. Like, what's the point?
Yep.
So why should I connect with other people? Can you talk to us a little bit more about, you know, some of those drivers and motivators that you come across and that you kind of take these groups through?
Yeah, I mean, I think as much as the data has likely been beaten up over the last 2.5+ decades, but there's overwhelming research and data that supports that if we actually are building meaningful relationships and friendships with our colleagues, that the work product is better. And so for those people out there that view work as just a means to an end, I'm not going to say that they're wrong. If that's the way they want to approach it, they can approach it that way. And yet, I think most of us, not all, but most of us, because of the sheer number of hours we spend at work, to miss out on the opportunity to not create more meaningful connections and relationships, which can cultivate more trust, more safety, more inclusiveness, a deeper sense of belonging. I mean, most of us, I would venture to say that some of our most important friends are the people that we work with, because they're the people we see most often when we're awake, certainly. That's what we lean into, is this belief that the data is indeed accurate, that having people at your work that you consider to be a friend will improve your engagement level, your productivity, your willingness to stay, your loyalty, your retention, like all of those factors that are clearly important. Oh, and outside of the business benefits, there continues to be overwhelming support that, you know, the quality of our lives, the health that we can experience, the happiness that we experience throughout our lives is directly correlated to the depth and level of the quality of our relationships. And again, I think because of the math, the number of hours we spend with our colleagues, therein lies the biggest opportunity to build some meaningful connections.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think you can feel it. Right. So, right, for folks who don't necessarily, you know, they're just kind of sitting there going, man, something just doesn't, it's not like I go to work and I just go to work. Something's not feeling right.
Yeah.
You know, we've been within my team, we've been talking about, right, what does it mean to build connection? Right. Why should we be here? And I love that whole idea, that sense of belonging that we create, right? Because there is a greater picture.
Absolutely. There really is. And it's, you know, I think the workplace that many of us grew up in was very transactional. It was, you get here, I'm going to hire you to do this job, and we're going to pay you a paycheck, and you're going to get some benefits, and that's the deal. And that deal still exists, but that doesn't mean we have to sacrifice all of the other periphery of like really powerful benefits that can create great workplaces, great experiences, great outcomes for the clients that we're serving, great products and services that we can deliver, create, innovate. Like at the end of the day, how we feel is a really big driver of how we perform. And so if we can up or accelerate the feelings of goodness, of connection, of friendship, of loyalty, of trust, of safety, of belonging, of inclusion, because we really truly understand and appreciate and enjoy the people that we work with every day because we've gotten to know them beyond just their job title or the role they play on the team, then I think that's a really good thing. I really do.
All right, so I think a lot of us suffer from the icebreaker burnout, especially during pandemic. It started, and it was, hey, this is great. Show me your pet, or let's have a virtual happy hour. And it was cute for a while. And now it's devolved into, okay, let's go around the table. Everyone tell us what kind of pizza you like. And, 20 minutes later, like, I really don't care what kind of pizza anyone in this room likes. Let's just move on. We got work to do. I'm curious to know, you have a passion for this. How did you get interested in connecting people?
I mean, I think a lot of it came from, I think I've always been interested in the people side of the business. Actually, that's a lie. Not always. Like the first 5 years of my career was in financial services. I didn't know what the hell I wanted to do after I got out of college. And so I took the first job that was offered to me and grinded away at it, had some success, but just went home every day feeling fairly unfulfilled. Like, am I really going to do this for the rest of my life? And then I got really, really lucky and was one of the earliest employees at a job board back in April of 2000. And this job board, obviously the business is built on employment advertising and understanding the cultures of different businesses that we were helping to advertise their open positions. And why would a candidate want to come work for your organization instead of all the other choices out there? So it was like working for this job board and consulting with hundreds, if not, over 1,000 employers and understanding what makes them a really great employer. I just got really interested in culture and values and the people side of the business much more than the X's and O's of the operations side. And you need both. And so through that, I think that's where I got turned on to recognizing, well, one of the really important elements of building a strong culture is you have a group of people that actually enjoy being around one another. So I think I was exposed to it through that. And then, as I had mentioned right when we kicked off the talk, it got greatly accelerated when I did that Ripple Intent event back in, again, I think it was the end of 2018, and I asked your audience. They were already sitting at round tables, so they were already in groups of like 6 or 7. And I opened up my talk with a question, and the question was, if you could uninvent any past invention, what would you uninvent and why? And then I gave the group, 10, 15 minutes to socialize it. And then as the group came back together, and I asked everybody, like, okay, what did we arrive at? And I was thinking people would talk about, I don't know, like, nuclear weapons or, things that are really harmful, right? That's kind of where my head was going. And almost to a person, the smartphone was the most common uninvention. And I'm like, whoa, that's crazy, because I love my phone. But what was really interesting was the why. And everyone in the room was dancing around the general consensus, which is that we're now spending so much time on social media and our faces buried in screens that it has this potential, if not already becoming a surrogate for real human connection. And so that got me really curious around, why does connection really matter? And so here I am now 5 years post that event and kind of head over heels in love with this idea that relationships is, to me, like, it's everything. So I don't even know if I answered your question, but that's
no.
That's how this thing came to be.
Well, I mean, it makes me wonder. I mean, don't people? Because I never was taught growing up how to make friends. No one ever said, this is the way you do it. Here's the process, or here's how you go about it. It just kind of like, I was told go make some friends.
Yeah.
That was the parenting I got, and it was much easier said than done. And of course, as I've gone through life, I've noticed that it doesn't get any easier as you go through life. And so what that tells me is either I'm broken because I don't know how to naturally make connections with people and develop those relationships. But clearly we all have a need. If the audience there, which was a couple hundred people, the consensus is this is damaging our ability to make friends, to connect with people, to have relationships, then the question would be, how don't we innately already know how to do that? So is the phone just preventing us, or do we actually have to learn or be guided or be helped in making connections and building relationships?
It's interesting, right? I think when we're kids, it's like we're so naive. We don't know what we're supposed to do and what we're not supposed to do. And I think as kids, we just build friendships because you're on the playground and you're playing Foursquare, or you're on the swing set, or whatever it is you did as a kid. And you're kind of friends with everybody. We don't have bias. We don't discriminate. There's no prejudice. We're just kids. In many ways, just completely unspoiled by the world, or unaffected by what we learn as we grow up. But to your point, I think as we age and we become more knowledgeable, we learn more about who we are, what we like, what we don't like. You're right. I don't know that any of us are taught how to make friends or make connections. But I think if we take a step back, or at least if I take a step back and think about who are the people in my life that I have forged some of the deepest relationships and connections with, it is without a doubt the people that I feel like I really know who they are at their core. They've been able to be vulnerable with me, and I've been able to be vulnerable with them. I don't have to hide. I don't have to pretend. There's no acting going on. And I think in many ways, music has this really powerful unlocking mechanism to allow people to be seen for who they are. Music is very safe, it's very fun, it's very relatable. And because it's safe, fun, relatable to talk about, the stories and the memories that different bands or songs hold in our lives can flow out from that place without it feeling like we are being overly revealing of some deep, dark secret. And so in a very in the most positive of ways, it just helps to lower our defenses and allow us to be seen in many ways for who we are and some of the experiences that have been most important in our lives.
Oh, this would be fun to do because Jon has no idea this would be coming. Could you pull out some of that from him? Do it in real time right here?
Yeah, sure. I could try. I mean, one of my favorite
session for me. Sweet, I love it.
So,
let's dig in deep.
Yeah, we could start with some of the. Let's start with hopefully what are some of the easiest questions. First album, cassette, CD you ever bought? Do you remember what it was?
So that I bought is a challenge. The first cassette I ever owned was like an early Run DMC.
Okay.
Yeah, but you know what? I got to tell you, I remember the album cover. I remember having it, and that's honestly about it.
Okay. And were you an MTV generation kid? Did Run DMC come online for you because you saw Run DMC and the Aerosmith collaboration and Walk This Way, or was it even earlier Run DMC that was influenced by the Sugar Hill Gang or some of the earliest hip hop and rap that came on the scene?
Oh, Brian, you could see the gray in my beard, man. I'm pre-MTV. We weren't even allowed to have MTV because we weren't allowed to have cable in the house until I was a junior in high school. So, I mean, I got a little Mike and the Mechanics, that's about it there.
Nice. Very nice. How about first concert you ever saw?
First concert was Grateful Dead at the Greensboro Coliseum, which would have been in the late or early 90s probably. Sweet.
That's hilarious. See, now Now, John, you and I could go on just a tangent of all tangents, right? Like, I had the opportunity to see Jerry and the Grateful Dead over 50 times before Jerry died.
Wow.
And so you saw them. Did you? What year did you say it was at the Coliseum, Greensboro?
That would have been like early 90s, maybe
90s.
91, 92.
Okay. And that was your very first concert, was seeing Jerry Garcia and the Grateful Dead.
Yeah, absolutely. With and maybe it was the second time they had Bruce Hornsby, who was sitting in on piano.
Yeah, right on. And how was that experience for you?
Oh, it was amazing. It was life altering. There was a whole community that, right? 'Cause like that's the whole deal, right? Grateful Dead. They had the Deadheads that would all tour with them and travel around.
Yep.
I felt like a little, more of a suburban kid. I just didn't grow up in that kind of environment.
Sure.
My parents certainly weren't hippies. And so, just seeing what that was like. I mean, I actually had hair then, so that I could grow out. So those days are gone. But, right. Just kind of seeing and experiencing, how are other people navigating this world? And I'm like, you know what? Maybe I should start a business, like making grilled cheese sandwiches outside the concert hall. I could probably cover my ticket costs pretty easily that way.
Yeah, a lot of people did, that's for sure. I don't know that that's the style of living that would suit, my lifestyle, but hey, a lot of people did it and they were able to make it work, so hats off to them, right? How about if you were alone on a deserted island and you were just stuck there for a handful of weeks, not life or death situation, you knew you were going to eventually get off, and you could bring a catalog of one artist or one band with you to obviously keep you company while you're alone. What artist or band's music catalog are you bringing with you for these handful of weeks that you're stuck by yourself?
Oh man, could it be a playlist? Have to be an artist.
It's got to be one band, one artist. You cannot. It's not going to be a mix.
So, I mean, my music tastes have certainly evolved over time.
Yeah.
Good or bad?
Good, for sure. Of course, it's an evolution. I mean, I've got like little pieces and parts. That's why like the playlist word works so well, because I'm gonna like pull a little ska in. I've moved through that. I would say now, probably Nathaniel Rateliff has been one of the top ends of my playlist, or at least like my Spotify search.
Yeah.
Right. Let's start there, and then introduce me to new music.
Yeah, I love that. All right, let's go with your. This one could get a little tricky, so I'll give you a pass if this gets a little too difficult. Imagine for a moment that you are hovering over your own celebration of life ceremony. All your friends and family are there. You're in the sky, witnessing everybody celebrating the life you lived, and you have the opportunity to create the playlist for that event. What are some of the songs that you would include that you would want to play for your friends and family who are there to celebrate you?
Wow. That is really interesting.
It's a tough one. I realize on the spot might be a little challenging, but any immediate gut reaction songs like pop in your head?
So I will say that in general, I am terrible with song names.
Okay.
But certainly, like I could pull out some artists,
Okay.
and then I certainly know them once I hear them.
Yep.
So I mean, this is going to be a pretty eclectic mix.
Bring it.
Because I think I'd want to go bring it. We're bringing it. We're going all out. We're going deep today. Some deep tracks.
Yeah.
I think we're going to have to pull some music over time. Because digging back, I mean, I loved the Cars back in the day.
Yep.
I will think the Greatest Hits album got a lot of play for me for a long time.
Yeah.
I might pull in actually a little Elvis Costello.
Okay.
That would be my wife probably wouldn't have even thought of that if she had to help pick the playlist. She goes, really? But yeah, I love that guy. I'd actually throw in maybe even a little Bob Marley.
Okay.
He was very part of my formative years for sure.
Yep.
And I might go through perhaps some Mighty Mighty Boss tones,
Okay.
right? As I start moving through the ska, I can see this is the journey of my musical
Yeah,
life.
yeah.
Is where we're heading.
Yeah.
So, Mighty Mighty Boss tones, they were pretty influential, and then I'd be a toss-up, maybe some Less Than Jake, or the Toasters, also very much in my ska era, and I'd probably then have to roll into, maybe a little Nathaniel Rateliff, Vance Joy. Been kind of moving down that direction past few years.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, so it's like each one of those bands or artists maps to a different, milestone along your musical journey, which maps to your life. And, I think we can arrive at conclusions or at least ideas of, I wonder who Jon is if this is the music that has been a part of Jon's life. And it just starts, I think, opens up an opportunity that if I were a huge fan of any of those artists that you mentioned, or listen to them recently, like immediately we could start having a very different conversation than what we might if we were in, in a more traditional work setting, at an event, at a conference, in the office, whatever the case may be. And now it's just like, I see you as a human, and you love music, and there's certain things that have spoken to you throughout your life, and it just opens up, I think, a door that now we can travel through if we want to, and we can get into some of those details, and whether it's the ska phase or what was it about the Cars or Bob Marley or Nathaniel Rateliff. Like, there's just a whole host of, if you're a curious person, curiosity that can emerge, and we can start to talk about those things. So I think it's cool. Last one, what's the most recent live concert you've been to?
Oh man, the most recent one.
It doesn't have to be like a big stadium show. It could have been a small, the neighborhood bar thing.
No, that's a great question. You know what? Well, the most recent actually was a canceled show. Oh. We saw the first part of it, which was supposed to be Shaky Graves, and it was at Red Rocks, and it was outdoors, and it got rained out. So we were like, the two opening acts went through, and then it was like, oh, okay. So I didn't actually get to see a show. I was so looking forward to that show.
Were the opening bands decent?
No, they were only okay. I don't even know who they were.
We're gonna get comments on that one. I can see it already.
No
opening acts. Hey, we were the opening act that night. What are you talking about?
Not that they weren't great. They just weren't my cup of tea. Who I was going for. So more power to them on their next tour.
There you go. Yeah. Kyle, how about for you? What's the most recent live event, concert that you've seen?
So we saw this summer, we went and saw Bare Naked Ladies and Delamitri and, now I'm blanking on the third one. It's Closing Time. They, all three of them, they performed at Red Rocks as well. And that was really cool.
It's a special venue.
It really is. And, I've used part of what they said, because during this show, it was awesome. They're touring against Taylor Swift. And at one point, one of the guys from Bare Naked Ladies, he says, we got one thing that she doesn't have. And she said, we got 4 guys on stage that are over 50. And that was so cool, because it hit me. I was like, holy crap. I look around at the audience, and there's mostly people in that age range, in their 50s that are there because they grew up with that music. And I saw them the first time with Metallica and Kid Rock in the late 90s, which it was like, okay, yeah, put that music festival together. That was an interesting mix. But here these 4 guys were up there. They even said at one point, we're going to play some new stuff, and we know that you all come here because we're like, yeah, we don't want the hits. We want to hear all the new stuff that you have. And he said, just bear with us because we like some of it, so we hope you like it too. And he played a couple new things, and it was like, all right, it's actually pretty good. They were having fun, and that was the part that really hit me was all these people, all those memories, because they played songs too that I even forgot about, and they did bring back memories or emotion or both. And it was like, oh man, like this moment in my life, I remember this song connecting to some event in my life, and it was just like, wow, I haven't been back there in a while. That was really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, music's a cool time machine. It really is. Other than our sense of smell, I don't know that anything can bring us back to moments in time more vividly, more quickly than music. So it's pretty cool that way.
And that's what I saw just as you were talking with John here, and when you're asking these questions, you can see, I could almost feel him journeying back to those moments when you're asking those questions, you know, being at the Grateful Dead conference or the concert, and then walking through the different albums or the groups, not the albums, but the groups that you were mentioning. You could almost feel like, yeah, you could almost see those memories coming back alive on his face as he was reminiscing about those things. And all he had to do was say one that you were like, ooh, that one? Because as soon as he said Grateful Dead, those of you who are just listening, Brian held up his water bottle with the Grateful Dead sticker on it. And like immediately, they could have easily gone and had a day-long conversation about the Grateful Dead. You could just tell. And it was like, man, I had no idea about that. And so, yeah, it's just, to me, it's so cool. It's like two people who know nothing about each other, when suddenly they share a common interest of some aspect of music, there's like this instant connection that happens.
Yep.
And you don't even have to try. It's just, well, you do have to try, because you talked about the vulnerability piece. To step into work and be in a corporate setting or a work setting and actually talk about, hey, I like this song, that takes a bit of courage from time to time.
Yep.
Especially if it's like, you know, a Vanilla Ice song or something like that. I mean, but it does. It takes a little bit of courage to step into, I like that, or I went to this the other day, or I heard this on the way in. And because you never know if someone's going to make fun of you or not. So it takes a little bit of courage. Plus, you also don't know it's just the right time or place. But it just seems like every time you do that, there's some sort of reflection from somebody else that goes, oh, wow. Yeah, here's what I heard, or here's what I did, or here's what I experienced. And it's like, so it does, you do have to put effort into it. It's not just natural, because you have to take that first step.
Yep.
Or be willing to take that first step.
Absolutely. That's exactly
How
right.
disappointed were you when you learned that Vanilla Ice sampled Queen to get his most famous song?
Hey, you know what? I still went and saw him. He
You
was
had the lines shaved into the side of your hair, didn't you?
no, surprisingly, he opened in spring break in Texas, in Corpus Christi. He opened for Run DMC, but he was under ice at the time because it was during his comeback. He was no longer Vanilla. He was now just ice. Just ice.
So funny.
And
Oh my gosh,
it was
if we could
awful.
only change our podcast theme song.
I mean,
That's awesome.
So-
Hey, Brian, what was your last concert, your last live show?
it was actually about 2 weeks ago. It was in Flagstaff, Arizona, at a really cool outdoor amphitheater called the Pepsi Amphitheater. And I saw a band by the name of Goose. They're from Connecticut. And over the last, I think they started in 2014 or 2015. I'm not exactly, don't hold me to that, but somewhere in that time frame. So, you know, they're not that old. And sort of that jam band music scene, you know, the Grateful Dead and Fish and Widespread Panic and some of those bands, they certainly are that, they kind of follow that recipe of, you know, two different sets, very improvisational. You're not going to see them do the same show over and over at every city they go to. In fact, you know, you could see them 3 nights in a row, and you won't see them do the same song. Any of those, you know, you'll see the same song one time, right? Or you'll see a song one time. There won't be repeats. And it's this. What I love about those types of artists is in experiencing the same way they are, the art being created in the moment, and it's unscripted, it isn't premeditated, it is very explorational or exploratory and improvisational. And so as a result of that kind of risk taking, you can have an amazing treat, or it could be a colossal failure because they may never achieve liftoff of where they're trying to go. And I love that element of art being created in the moment and not being rehearsed or scripted. I mean, they're incredible musicians, and it was only the second time that I've seen them, and I just walked away, and I only know maybe like 4 or 5 of their songs, and it was amazing. They achieved a variety of really incredible peaks. And some really, really great moments where the energy exchange between the band and the audience, like it was alive, it was breathing, and I really love those kinds of moments. So it's a band that like probably most people have never heard of, and I wouldn't expect them to, because they're certainly a bit of an underground. But they just sold out 2 nights at Red Rocks right when they left Flagstaff. They did 2 nights at Red Rocks. And then finished up their tour in Fort Collins. So they're certainly on the kind of the upward ascent right now as a band in that scene.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. They're good. They're really, really good.
Wow. That sounds like quite an experience.
It is. It really is. But you gotta love that kind of music where, there are certainly vocals to all the songs, but it is not uncommon for a song to be 12 to 18 minutes long. And so a 12 to 18 minute long song, most people are like, what the heck? Like, where's it going? And to, the average listener, that might be very uninteresting, and I get that. So it is a bit of an acquired taste, but it's a taste that I happen to love. And a lot of that was just born out of my love of the Grateful Dead, and again, not going to their shows and you have no idea what you're going to hear, and it might be a great night or it might be an absolute just shitbag of a show, which there were plenty of terrible Grateful Dead shows that I saw as Jerry was just not in tip-top shape.
Yeah, sort of the opposite end of the spectrum from the Ramones, minute and a half, 2.5 minute song.
Yeah, which that's amazing music, right? The Ramones are incredible, absolutely incredible. So you got to. I think as a music fan, I appreciate the uniqueness of what each artist or band is trying to do, and just not expect that they're all going to be what I want them to be. They are who they are. They got to be interested in what they're doing first and foremost.
Man, I gotta say, I was impressed when I first met you, and just to hear you today talking about and feeling your passion for both music and people. It's no surprise that what you're doing right now is where you're supposed to be. I mean, if there's anybody who wants to know more about what you're up to and how to get more involved or just get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. I'm somewhat active on Twitter, and I do a little bit of Instagram. My email is always a great way, Brian with an I, and then at anthym.life. And Anthem is spelled slightly unique, ANTHYM. So Brian at anthym.life is my email. So my last name's spelled MOHR. So if you wanted to look me up on LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever, that's where you'll find me.
That's awesome, man. I wish we could keep going, because like I said, I mean, I can feel the energy, your love of music, your love of people, and now I feel terrible. And I wrote it down because, and the reason I wrote this down is because I have never talked to somebody who introduced themselves by introducing their wife and their family first. So I feel terrible that I don't do that all the time.
Oh, that's that has just come through a lot of reflection and thinking about, what are the things that are most important to me in my life? And that's not saying that they aren't the most important thing they're undoubtedly the most important to everybody. Like if you have a spouse, a life partner, kids, your family, for most of us, family is the most important thing. And so much of who I am as a person is a direct result of my family and like what I care about. And so, you could go check me out on LinkedIn to see what I am, but if you really want to know who I am, then it's going to start with the things that matter most to me.
And that makes perfect sense, and that is really awesome. I don't know, John, how should we wrap this up today? do we ask for a takeaway, or are we just good at this point? I'm not sure where we go, because there's just a lot to process, but there's a lot to just be in. I'm feeling right now.
There is, but you know what? I'm going to stick with the music piece because you guys did such a deep dive on me. So we did talk about our latest live show, but who is the artist that you guys are listening to most lately?
Ah, that's a really good one.
Oh yeah, yeah. Are you asking us, or are you asking the audience to ponder that as they sign off of our podcast?
Well, you're going to answer while they ponder.
Oh, okay. That's easy because Blink-182 is one of my favorite all-time bands, and they've been slowly releasing new songs leading up to their album later this month. So I've been listening to those quite a bit, and they're good. They are good.
Brian, before you go, I mean, Kyle, you and I know each other so well, and we have never had this conversation.
No.
Right? So this is fascinating. I did not know that about you with Blink-182. Or your love of Motley Crue, which we talked about before we started. So, all right, Brian, your turn.
Yeah, that's actually it's a great question, John. I'm having a hard time thinking about, and here's why I'm struggling with it. About 7 years ago, I decided that I wanted to finally begin pursuing a childhood dream of learning how to play the guitar. So I've been doing that, and I play pretty much every day. And as a result of learning how to play and throwing myself into that, it has opened up my musical universe in a really, really big way. Because now I'm always listening for, guitar patterns and chords and songs that's like, oh, I wonder if I could play that on an acoustic guitar. And so a lot of my musical universe, like the aperture, just widened so much from sort of a narrow focus in that jam band scene to now I'll listen to just about anything, and I'm like, oh, I wonder if I could play that. So I will say that, the artists that I've been listening to way more than ever before is some of the more modern country type stuff, like Tyler Childers and Chris Stapleton, which for many is probably old hat, but for me is somewhat new. And I really am appreciating the stories behind their music and the songs, and attempting to figure out what are they singing about, what's the message or the feeling or the story that they're trying to convey. So I've been listening to a lot of that. There's a variety of bluegrass musicians that I've been really digging on lately, like a band called the Brothers Comatose, a musician by the name of Billy Strings, who is just out of this world talented. And bluegrass and country influence type stuff has been kind of at the top of my Spotify playlist as of late.
Oh my gosh, Brian, we need to do this more, because I recently found Green Sky Bluegrass.
Oh yeah, they're great.
Which I don't know. I've not been a huge bluegrass. I am not a country music person, but there's something about it that I just love, and so they're really. I've been listening to a lot of them lately, and they take non-bluegrass songs and they play them in a bluegrass style.
Yeah.
Right? Like Pink Floyd.
Yep.
So
yeah, they do a killer rendition of Breathe and a variety of other Floyd tunes. Yeah, they're really good. What's amazing about bluegrass, certainly to folks that might immediately poo-poo on it, is if you really listen to it and you get 4 or 5 musicians up there playing exclusively string instruments, you'll almost forget that there's no percussion, there's no drums, there's none of that, and yet you're bouncing around as if there were multiple percussive instruments up there, and they can get that same kind of driving force that you would get from a badass drummer back behind a kit or a band with a double drummer ensemble. It's amazing what really talented bluegrass musicians can do to create that sort of locomotive forward driving energy. It's really good stuff. It's great musicianship.
Oh, I love it. So I'll, as we wrap up, we're past our time, but I want to keep this conversation going. So, right, listeners, you're all hearing us, but we're seeing each other on the screens as well. And so this is actually the first I'm meeting Brian, but I feel this connection that we're creating, like we've been talking about, through this conversation about music. And so this is easy to replicate. You have to have the courage to start the conversation. But, man, this has just been easy. And now I'm totally energized. And, I'm ready to, plow through and tackle the world. So
That's the power of music right
there.
there.
You go, Kyle. There's our takeaway for today.
There you go.
Give it a shot. Start a conversation. So everybody reach out to Brian. Find Brian online. You can also find us, rippleintent.org. Find us on LinkedIn, myself and Kyle as well, and come out to one of our events and experience the conversation. And who knows, we might be talking about music pretty soon.
That's true. Appreciate everybody listening. Appreciate the support, and appreciate you, Brian. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for the time.
Hey, thank you, guys. I really appreciate it. It was a really fun conversation. Thanks for having me.
It was. All right. We'll take I'm going to say we'll see you next time, but because it's a podcast and that makes absolutely no sense.
We'll talk at you next time.
We'll talk at you next time. Take care. There you go.